Got some new fan art for you guys. So last week I talked about a couple of books, the Jehovah's Witness Elder's Handbook and the God's Love book, and I found it all really interesting. But the Elder's Handbook was a little dry for me. It had some very interesting stuff in it, some damning stuff even, but it was mostly just a big description of the hierarchy and how it operates. I mean, that's interesting stuff to be sure, but the God's Love book really goes into detail about beliefs and doctrine on a level that the Elder's Handbook doesn't. So I'm going to take a closer look at both books, but I'm going to focus more heavily on the topics you'll find in the God's Love book. I figured we'd go through another section on one of these books, so let's take a look here. Let's get into it. So the first section I wanted to cover in these two books was the section on women wearing head coverings from the God's Love book. I remember my mom wearing a head covering at one point. Basically, if there's a baptized male in the house, he has the responsibility and obligation to lead the spiritual rituals and stuff. For example, if you're at the dinner table with your mom and you're a baptized 9-year-old, you are obligated to say the prayer for both of you, not her. You are obligated to lead the studies when you read the Bible with her. The way they get around this is by wearing head coverings, to show submission to the male's authority. After I got baptized, my mom still did some spiritual stuff like praying and things, so when she did, she would put a napkin on her head. Some people tie bandanas around their heads. I think it's all outrageous and stupid personally, but that's just me. I also think it comes from the same place as Islam and hijabs. So let's take a look at the God's Love book on page 209 to see what they say about head coverings. Maybe we can decide if it's actually derived from things the Bible said or if it's complete bullshit. Well, I guess it's complete bullshit either way. Let's see if they got it from the Bible or not anyways. Here's paragraph 1, page 209 of the God's Love book. When and why should a Christian woman wear a head covering in connection with her worship? Let us consider the Apostle Paul's inspired discussion of this subject. He provides the guidance we need in order to make good decisions, ones that honor God. Paul reveals 3 factors to weigh: the activities that call for a woman to wear such a covering, the settings in which she should do so, and the motives for her to apply this standard. Okay, so they're saying there are 3 things to examine: the activities, the settings, and the motives. That's what the next few paragraphs talk about. But before we actually check the Watchtower Society on this, let's check the Bible. Here's what the Bible says about head coverings. 1 Corinthians 4-6. Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head, but every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. It is the same as having her head shaved. For if a woman does not cover her head, she might as well have her hair cut off. But if it is a disgrace for a woman to have her hair cut off or her head shaved, then she should cover her head. Now for a few verses down. Verses 13-16. Judge for yourselves. Is it proper for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered? Does not the very nature of things teach you that if a man has long hair, it's a disgrace to him, but that if a woman has long hair, it is her glory? For long hair is given to her as a covering. If anyone wants to be contentious about this, we have no other practice, nor do the churches of God. Now, this is where my questions start. Isn't it saying that long hair is the woman's head covering? So she wouldn't need a head covering at all, as long as her hair is long, right? But here's the problem. The Bible isn't just vague about how you should cut your hair. It outright contradicts itself. 1 Corinthians 11:14. Does not the very nature of things teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a disgrace to him? And the contradicting verse, Numbers 6:5. During the entire period of their Nazirite vow, no razor may be used on their head. They must be holy until the period of their dedication to the Lord is over. They must let their hair grow long. It sounds to me like growing your hair out is viewed as holy. In fact, it outright says that. So what should we do? And here's my favorite verse, right in the middle. 1 Corinthians 6-12. A man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God. But a woman is the glory of man. For man did not come from woman, but woman from man. Neither was man created for woman, but woman for man. Well, we can see where women stand in this hierarchy. Okay, I'm not going to pull the Bible apart right now. Let's just see how Jehovah's Witnesses interpreted those verses. Back to the God's Love book. Here's a paragraph about activities that require a head covering. The activities. Paul mentions 2. Prayer and prophesying. Prayer, worshipful address to Jehovah. Today, prophesying would apply to any Bible-based teaching that a Christian minister does. Is Paul suggesting, though, that a woman should cover her head whenever she prays or teaches the Bible truth? No, the setting in which a woman prays or teaches makes all the difference. This is getting interesting. So they say women have to wear a head covering when praying or prophesying. Then they claim that prophesying is no longer what it used to mean when it was written, but at some point between now and then it changed to mean any Bible-based teaching that a Christian minister does. I think they're mixing up the word prophesying with proselytizing. Let's just fact check that. Here's the definition of prophecy: a miracle of knowledge, a declaration or description or representation of something future beyond the power of human sagacity to foresee, discern, or conjecture. So here's the next question. Who does all the prophesying for Jehovah's Witnesses? The governing body. The Bible clearly says that women can prophesy. So why are there only male governing body members? Is prophesying considered teaching, like the verse in one of the Timothys about not permitting a woman to teach? Paul seemed to be okay with it. Feels to me like they're unfairly weighting the religion against women for no good reason. And I just want to make note that they incorrectly defined prophesying as any Bible-based teaching that a Christian minister does. By that definition, it would mean any time they go door knocking or do Bible studies with people, they should be wearing head coverings. The Bible never specified if they had to wear one, only if there was a baptized man around. It just says she should be wearing it when she prays or prophesies, period. Okay, let's continue. Second paragraph. The settings in which women should wear head coverings. The settings. Paul's words suggest two settings, or spheres of activity: the family and the congregation. He says, the head of a woman is the man. Every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered shames her head. In the family arrangement, the woman's husband is the one whom Jehovah designates as her head. Unless she gives due recognition to her husband's authority, she would shame her husband if she handled responsibilities that Jehovah assigns to him. Whoa, hold on. It says if she prays or prophesies at all, not if she prays or prophesies around a man. So should she be praying or not? What I'm getting from this verse is that they should only ever pray if they're wearing a head covering. Where did it imply that praying or prophesying without a head covering was acceptable? And I'm still not going to let them get away with changing the meaning of prophesying. It clearly says they expect women to prophesy. Okay, next part of the paragraph. It says, if it became necessary for her to conduct a Bible study in her husband's presence, she would acknowledge his authority by wearing a head covering. She would do so whether he is baptized or not, since he's the head of the family. Footnote, a Christian wife would not normally pray aloud in the presence of her believing husband, except in unusual circumstances, such as if he had been rendered mute by an illness. God, these people are so strange. Have you guys ever wondered how Jehovah's Witnesses come to these insane, ridiculous conclusions? Like about 1914, for example? Here's what they do. You know those people who say you can take the 4th verse from the 5th chapter from every book of the Bible and string it all together to get some secret message from God or something? I think it's called Bible code. And if you guys want to hear a real conspiracy theory, check that out. I'll probably end up talking about it at some point. Anyways, that's kind of what Jehovah's Witnesses do. They take every verse of the Bible, toss out context completely, and mash them together to get a completed message. It's all inspired of God, right? For the longest time, I didn't view the Bible as what it is, just a compilation of a bunch of different scrolls found in the desert. The book of Mark should stand on its own. It should exist completely independently of the others. They might address similar things, they might mention common events, but they weren't written at the same time or by the same people. They weren't intended to be mashed together haphazardly to create a new story. The Gospels are written from a historical perspective, though they're complete garbage. The book of Psalms is just the hymnal they used thousands of years ago. Revelation was written on a fevered LSD trip, I suspect. Okay, that's unproven. I'm just saying, the books of the Bible have their own context, and it's absolutely ridiculous to take individual verses and jam them together. It leads to nonsense about predicting the future, like the whole 1914 teaching, and then the second generation teaching. Okay, let's read one more paragraph from this God's Love book, the paragraph about the motives for wearing a head covering. Here's what it says. In verse 10, we find two reasons why a Christian woman would want to fulfill this requirement. The woman ought to have a sign of authority on her head because of the angels. Before I continue, I just want to point out how enigmatic that is. Because of the angels? What the f***? Now let's see how Jehovah's Witnesses explain it. At its face, there is no explanation. There's no reasoning your way through that. Here's the next part of the paragraph. How does a woman affect those mighty spirit creatures, the angels, by wearing a head covering? The angels are interested in seeing that divine authority is recognized throughout Jehovah's organization, in heaven and on earth. They also benefit from the examples of imperfect humans in this regard. After all, they too have to be submissive to Jehovah's arrangement. I'm not the only one who sees that as completely completely ridiculous, right? Jehovah's Witnesses have no explanation or understanding for why the verse just says, because of the angels, so they make one up. They spin up a story that makes them seem like they know what they're talking about. After all, the governing body is divinely inspired to interpret the scriptures, right? Some people have speculated about the governing body. Do they believe their own bullshit or not? Do they think it's real? Or are they just lying to millions of people? I think I fall on the same side as John Cedars in this debate. I think the governing body really believes what they're saying is true. I think they're just as indoctrinated as everybody else, and they're continuing the indoctrination. The victims become the victimizers. They've had to lie under oath to protect the Watchtower Society before, recently even, but they viewed that as theocratic warfare. Any manipulation, lying, or cheating you have to do to further God's agenda, or more accurately, the Watchtower Society's agenda, is fair game. In fact, Scientology has a similar rule called fair game. Jehovah's Witnesses don't go quite as far with it as Scientology does, but it's still there. It's still destructive. It should still be eradicated as a rule and as a philosophy. Anyways, that's all I've got for you. Follow me on Discord, Patreon, Facebook, and all social media. And check out my science channel and my podcast. Also, check out the secret link of the day. I haven't done that for a while. All links are in the description. Thanks for watching, guys.